I'd like to tell you about the time that King Neptune, Apollo, Davy Jones, whatever you'd like to call him, almost took my life at sea. It was on a yacht. But before I tell you about the incident, I've got to go back and to explain a little bit about the yacht and our experience of the yacht. I was working in Sydney at the time, doing a lot of country trips during the week, traveling out there on Monday morning, coming back on Friday night, and getting pretty fed up with it. One Friday night, I came home with a new resolution. I said to my partner, Fiona at the time, I'm going to learn how to sail. Would you like to come with me? And she immediately said, let's do it. She told me later on that she figured that this was going to be something special in my life, and if she didn't join me, that she was going to get left out altogether. So the following morning, we phoned the CYC, that's the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia in Rushcutters Bay in Sydney, and said, how do you learn how to sail? And they said, we have sailing lessons every Saturday. If you'd like to come down next week, you can join with a crew and we'll take you out to teach you how to sail. There can be anything up to 10 or 12 people on the boat. I said, fine, book us in. It was a series of 3 Saturday lessons, 4-hour lessons each Saturday. So we went down there the following week, and it turned out we were the only 2 on the boat, except for the instructor, of course. And it was one of those absolutely idyllic autumn days on Sydney Harbour. The sun was shining, there was about 8-10 knots of breeze. We cruised around Fort Denison, we cruised underneath the Sydney Opera House, over to the North Shore by the zoo. It was just a perfect day. Just basically learning about the sails and the lanyards and the halyards and the stays and all the different things. And chatting to the chap who had just spent 6 months cruising around the Whitsunday Islands, I'm sorry. So we finished the lesson about midday, somewhere around there, and we went up to the coffee lounge afterwards, sat down with a cup of coffee and looking over the bay, over the water, over the Sydney Harbour. And I said to Fiona, I know what I want to do next. And she said, what's that? I said, I want to buy a boat and sail around the world. She said, okay, let's do it. So over the next week or so, we put together a 6-year plan. Right? 6-year plan to pay off our place, get enough money together to buy a yacht, learn how to sail properly, do all the things that you need to do. That 6-year plan turned out to be 6 months. Within a month, we had brought a yacht, a 37-foot Duncanson, a South Australian yacht, very, very sound yacht, from a chap called Ian Duncan, funnily enough, up in Queensland, in a place called Mooloolaba. We went up there, had a look at it, loved the boat. Monohull, beautiful set of sails, wonderful condition, all the tricks and things that you need on a yacht, or at least all the tricks and things that we thought you needed on a yacht at the time, being greenies. I had actually spent 6 years at sea, from the age of 15 through till about 22, which is 17, but it was about 6.5 years. So I was not afraid of the sea, but I'd never actually been out in anything so small before. We brought the yacht, but we had to sail it back down to Sydney again. You can't put a 37-foot yacht on the back of a truck and sail it down and take it down there. And we didn't really have much experience at all. 12 hours, 3-4-hour lessons is not an awful lot of experience to take a 37-foot yacht from Mooloolaba to Sydney, which is about 1,500 kilometres, something like that. So I went round to the yacht club in Mooloolaba and asked them, is there anyone who would like to sail to Sydney? Anyone like a trip to Sydney? And there was this guy standing there, and he said, yeah, he said, I've got a girlfriend in Sydney I haven't seen for a long time. He said, I'll help you sail it down there if you'll pay my airfare back. I said, you've got a deal. Right? So we arranged to go, stocked the boat up with supplies, etc. Picked him up a couple of days later, and on a Saturday morning, I think it was, we set sail for Sydney. About that evening, we're taking stock of where we are. Fiona did all the navigating and the charting, etc. I was more the hands-on deck person. And this sailor says, I've got a little bit of a problem. I said, what's the matter? He said, I've left my glasses behind. And I said, well, do you need them very much? And he said, well, they're not really glasses. They're more like bottle tops. I can't see much at all without them. So we thought, well, what do we do? Do we go back or not? And he said, no, it's all right. We'll go on. As night fell, he said to Fiona, would you take a sighting on those 2 lights over there? And Fiona said, what 2 lights? And he said, those blue ones over there. Fiona said, there's only one. So this is how blind he was. But everything was fine. In the morning, a bit of a gale blew up, but it was behind us, so we were making really, really good time. It was about 35, 40 knot winds, and we were steaming along. Shouldn't say steaming, we were on a sailboat. And next minute we heard this almighty bang! Wow, it's like a bomb exploded right on the boat. What happened was that the portside stern stay holding up the mast had pulled itself out of the deck. Fortunately, the boat had a very good mast, very strong mast. It was very sturdy, and so it held. We didn't have any clamps or anything to clamp it back together again. So we made our way into Yamba and had to stay there for the weekend while we, for Sunday till Monday when the shipyard opened again. They could reattach the stay, and we set out again for Sydney. The rest of the trip was reasonably uneventful. The chap was very nice. He came up to our place, stayed for a night, had a shower, went and met his girlfriend. We gave him his airfare back, and everything was fine. Fiona and I then weekended the boat around Sydney Harbour for the next 6 months. Occasionally I take it out by myself because it was a very easy boat to single hand, except that it did not have furling sails, so that if you wanted to change the sails you actually had to take them down and put them up, which meant hoving to while we were actually doing, if I was on my own, hoving to while I was doing that. But that didn't really matter. It was just a matter of it was just a learning experience. And it was pretty uneventful learning to sail. I sailed up to Port Macquarie a few times and came back, sailed up to Newcastle, back a couple of times, which was a couple of overnighters, but just good fun. 6 months after we brought the boat, I said to my partners, or sometime before that, I said to my partners, I want out of this business. Would you like to buy me out? And they said, yep, sure. So I sold my third of the business to my partners. We had a big lunchtime dinner with all our friends at the Manly Hotel. We had the yacht anchored just inside the harbour there. After lunch, we took anybody who wanted to go out to have a look over the yacht, waved bye-bye, and sailed out of Sydney Harbour up towards the Great Barrier Reef, the Whitsunday Passage. The idea was that we would spend a year or so just travelling up and down the east coast of Australia to really get used to sailing before we went on the big adventure all around the world. Sailing around like that, cruising sailing, is very much like backpacking. There's a sort of a snail trail that everybody follows. So you tend to hook up with 2 or 3 or 4 other boats, and you keep running into the same people in different harbours along the way, and it gets to be incredibly social. You tend to leave Sydney around April each year, and by October, late September, November at the latest, you start heading back south because you start running into hurricane season up there. Either you head south or you tie the yacht up in a marina for the summer period. We were heading up the coast for the second time, and there was a bit of a storm raging, and we had 2 other boats with us. Tassie Blue from Tasmania, called Tassie Blue because it was from Tasmania and because the owner actually used to be a farmer growing blueberries. So he named his boat Tassie Blue. He built it himself. Beautiful, big, rustic old thing, but wonderful boat. And the other one I can't remember, but I remember that the 2 of them used to play guitar, and Each evening, if we were in harbour together, they'd pull the guitars out. We'd have a good old sing-along. Most of them would wind up throwing tomatoes at me because my voice sounds like a broken record. But it was really a lot of fun. 5 o'clockses was a good time, which reminds me of the time we were in where we Airlie Beach, and we were anchored out, asleep at night, and this storm blew up, and it was howling winds. Really not bad storm, but just howling winds. And we were sleeping under the foredeck, and there was a hatch above us, so you could look from where our bunk. You could look straight up at the sky. And a couple of times I leapt out of bed, opened the hatch, looked around. Yeah, no, we're fine, no problems. And then one minute they're lying there, just sort of starting to cuddle up together. And we looked up, and as the bowsprit of another boat appeared above us. So we leapt out of bed, and ashore we dragged the anchor right underneath this 50, 60-foot boat. So no time to get dressed, no nothing. We leapt out of bed, rushed up to bed, pulled up the anchor, turned on the motor, steamed over, dropped the anchor, secured again, made a cup of coffee and sat up on deck. A couple of days later we went into harbour, and we were having 5 o'clockses with a few other people in the marina, swapping, salty tales, and we were telling about this dragging the anchor. And this couple who we were having drinks with said, "Was that you?" He said, "I was sitting on deck with my husband, and I said to him, 'Look at that man over there. He's got no clothes on.' And my husband said, 'What man?' 'Look at the woman. She's got no clothes on either.'" But I digress. We were heading up the coast of Australia with these two boats, and there was a bit of a storm came up, and it was a bit of a severe storm. When you're on a yacht, you're pretty secure at sea unless you bang into anything. Yachts can get knocked down, they can do 360s, they can roll all the way over. Because of this keel that they have, the weight in the keel, they will actually turn back up and upright themselves, as long as you haven't got your hatches open and you fill up with water, etc. So I said to the guys on the radio, I said, "Look, I'm heading out to sea." And this fisherman came on the line, and he said, "Guys, I think you ought to get in behind the island. This is going to be a bad one." Well, we were approaching Fraser Island. Fraser Island is a big sand island, about a couple of hours north of Brisbane. Being a sand island, separated from the mainland by Noosa Heads, being a sand island, the sand is constantly shifting. The entrance to between the island and the mainland is called Wide Bay. It's about approximately 1 kilometre wide from memory. But as the sand shifts, it's very, very shallow. And so it shoals out for hundreds and hundreds of meters out into the ocean. And because it's shifting all the time, so the entrance shifts all the time. And the two boats we were with had gone in already. One of them had actually been knocked down. The woman on board had been washed overboard. And fortunately she was attached by a sea vest, pulled herself on board, and they made it in safely. Unfortunately for us, by the time we got there, they were out of sight. And the chart that we had, or the coordinates that we had to get in, were out of date. They'd changed. So we started going in by the old coordinates. And if I can paint a picture for you, the seas just roll and roll and roll, one after the other, like breaking waves rolling over the top of each other for hundreds of meters into the beach. We had our depth sounder set at 6.5 feet. Right? We drew 6 foot, so we had 6 inches clear underneath us. So if there was less than 6 inches, we got this beep, 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 beep. In other words, take warning, you're in very shallow water. Well, we got into really shallow water. I don't know what depth it was, because the depth sounder was going crazy. The boat was tilting because of the wind. We had too much sail up, and we were really up shit creek. We had the motors going. Fiona was on the helm. We had done the sensible sort of thing. A lot of guys, when they have a boat, they want to take charge of everything, and they want to be the boss, the captain, they want to be behind the wheel. We thought that was all a bit silly. We trained Fiona to be behind the wheel, and she became very, very adept at it. So that I was a little bit stronger, even though I'm only a scrawny little runt. I was a little bit stronger and could actually work the sails and do the heavier work. So she was on the wheel at about 45 degrees. The boat was over about 45 degrees, and we were trying to keep balance. I was trying to work the surf. We had the motor going full bout. The depth sound was going. The sails were flapping and flapping and flapping. The ocean, the seas were breaking over the boat, and we were up shit creek. We didn't know where the channel was to get into Wide Bay. Fortunately, a fishing boat came in, and when we saw it coming in, we then discovered, that's where the channel is. We could see them on deck, and we could see them watching us, but there's nothing that they could do, because they knew as well as we did, the water was too shallow for them to come and save us. They drew more than 6 foot, and they would have been grounded and in just as much trouble as we were, but they did show us the way. And so we managed to plow our way out, managed to get round the buoy and get in behind Fraser Island. It was incredible, because when we got inside Fraser Island, it was like peace and calm. It was a different country, you know. One minute you were surrounded by noise and you know, exhilaration. I've got to say, when it was happening, you either become scared and you go into your shell, or you become exhilarated. I had been in a few bad storms when I was at sea. I was in Bremerhaven, just off Bremerhaven one time. We were stuck there for 3 days at a big storm. We were on an empty cargo boat. Bremerhaven lights were right there, Bremerhaven being the port for Bremen City. Bremerhaven was right there, but we couldn't turn to get into the harbour. The seas were so big. 9 fishing boats went down in that storm. And I was on watch one time, just wandering up in the lee of the boat, having a good time actually. The weather was wonderful. It was just blowing a gale, that's all, and the seas were breaking, pouring over the bow. And we got a little bit broadside to it when the silly first mate opened the wrong door. He went out the wrong door just as some seas broke over the bridge. And so the water poured into the bridge, right? And next minute the door flew open, and the first mate saying, "Get in here and take the wheel," you know. I'm out there singing because it was actually a lovely night. And the helmsman who was on the wheel at the time was being sick, so I relieved him on the wheel, and I thought it was all just good fun, you know. So we took the wheel, and that was one of the storms I was in. I was in a number of big storms, but nothing that really put us in great danger like this yacht. When we entered inside Fraser Island, it was total calm, because the wind was coming from the northeast, so Fraser Island protected us from the wind. Beautiful, like as calm as the swimming pool. You know? Wow, I said, wow, such a relief. I said to Fiona, "Do you want to put the pot on? We'll have a cup of tea." And she said, "All right then." And so she went down, she put the pot on, she's cleaning up. Whack. What happened? We run aground. Right? Now, running aground on sand in calm water is not really an awful big problem, because you just have to tilt the boat over a little bit until the keel comes out of the sand. Then you sail along like that until you find the channel, and then you right it again. Carry on. It was just a bit of fun. But there was 2 yachts coming in behind us. It came in behind us, and they saw us run aground, so boom, they changed course, found the channel, and waved to us bye-bye as we were trying to get out of the sand. Uh, great fun, great fun, you know. Yachting is one of those experiences that it's almost impossible to describe. Um, I took a trip um, up to Port Stephens one time, and I pulled into there long weekend, and a friend of mine was there on a stink boat. He'd brought a stink boat, what we call a stink boat because it doesn't have sails, it has an enormous great motor, 42-footer. So we were having drinks, and I said to him, how much did it cost to bring this up here? And this would have been back in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. And he said, oh, about $500 in petrol. I said, wow. I said, it wouldn't have cost me $5. You know, we turn the motor on when we're pulling the anchor up. We turn the motor off when we're coming in to find anchor. Nothing. And when you're on a stink boat, it's a little bit like going on a picnic and driving. You drive there, and when you get there, you stop and you have a picnic. But nobody really enjoys the drive unless it's beautiful scenery or something. When you're on a yacht, the enjoyment is actually getting there. That's the challenge, because you're pitting yourself against nature, and you never know what nature is going to throw against you. One minute the wind can be coming from one direction, next minute it can be coming from another direction. The seas can churn, anything can happen, because you don't go very fast on a yacht, unless of course you're on a racing boat in a challenge or something like that. But cruising sailors don't worry about that. Normally we choose not to go out in bad weather, we just take our time. But this day going into Fraser Island, Davy Jones had his arms open wide for us. We were very, very lucky, because if we had hit bottom, there was no way we could have got off. No way. We would have been in the water probably 400 or 500 meters from shore. There would have probably been 40, 50 rolling, surfing seas between us and the shoreline. Surviving would have been pretty difficult, and there was nobody to come and save us. Nobody to come and save us. Eventually, we decided to. Eventually, Fiona decided that she did not want to sail around the world, that she was scared. Right? She was a fantastic navigator. She was fantastic on the helm. She used to get sick every time we left port, but she'd go to sleep and wake up, and she was fine after that. So we sat in Mooloolaba Harbour for a little while we sold the boat, and then instead of sailing around the world, because I didn't want to go by myself, she said, you go if you want to, I'll come and join you for the land legs around South America and Europe and places like that. But I thought, no, not by myself. So we sold the boat and went to South America and backpacked around South America for 18 months. But that's another story. So that's the story about Davy Jones almost getting another couple of bodies for his locker. I'll talk to you again about another story another time.